nonsense at Kew or any other lovely gardens.
On the other hand, Steve Ward of Binley Wood says the guide to conservatories featured on Gardeners World a couple of weeks ago
was second only to Kew Gardens, the sort of thing any normal gardener can only dream of.
In fact, Steve thinks
Gardeners World should be renamed the Yuppie's Guide to Gardening.
What's happened, he cries.
To Anne Swithinbank getting her fork stuck into the soil.
And what, Steve wants to know,
is that giant Malteser that keeps appearing.
The Malteser being one of many things Steve now can't make head nor tail of because
everything is now so rushed, without any of the old lay-back appeal.
In fact, says Steve,
it all seems geared to the Ideal Home or Country Life Brigade.
Whereas you see Steve
is a gardener as well as a professional horticulturist.
And therefore Steve doesn't want to know how the rich pay to have their gardens looked after. So please, says Steve,
let's get back to allotments, gardens and gardeners with soil on all three.
Right. Full marks to Gardeners World, who have put their hands up. Dennis Adams, the editor, is not such a yuppie after all. He says they've seen the error of their ways and they did swing in the direction of trendy, but he hopes fans of the programme will agree it is now back on course. And once again, quite suitable for the likes of... I hope no one's having a late tea. That from French and Saunders. Now, Brian Cliff thinks something very odd is happening in Bergerac's jersey.
Yes, it never rains. While we sit at home with the wind howling and the heavens opening, there's Jim running in an open-necked shirt.
Brian says he presumes this is because
Jim's car has no roof. Or is Michael Fish a better answer?
Oh, I very much doubt it, Brian. Even if he did, it would probably take him far too long to explain.
Well, with the few minutes available to them, isn't it amazing how weather persons indulge in so much tautology?
For example, Mr. Machin?
Good evening to you for good evening. Temperatures dropping down for temperatures dropping. Following along behind for following. A short length of time for a short time. More in the way of sun for more sun. Merging together for merging. Intermittent showers for showers.
And most infuriating of all, says Mr. Machin.
Well, that's about it from me.
When, says Mr. Machin, they could just say...
that's it.
Right, let's move on to Move Over Darling, which Mr. Machin would probably have preferred to be entitled...
Shift.
Anyway, for those who don't stay up late at night, this was a 5-day investigation into women's lives to coincide with International Women's Day. Elizabeth Sheffield was one of several dozen to make the point that the timing of the programme suggested whoever decided it should be on at 11 o'clock at night doesn't have the first clue about women's lives. In fact, she says,
they who decided to put it on after my bedtime must be men.
And she's nearly right. Just one. Him, Elizabeth.
Well, could you tell him, Anne? I'm not a 10-year-old, but one of those lucky women who've made it into management. But I have 2 youngish children, a husband and a house to keep, so I need my sleep.
Mind you, whatever time this series went out, it wasn't going to impress Caroline Black.
No, an idea by Toya Wilcox, executively produced by Janet Street Porter and presented by Pamela Stevenson. In the end, don't you feel you've seen it all before?
Anne Whitehead of Preston thought the series concentrated too much
on how women want to be part of a man's world.
Whereas, says Anne,
in reality, we want to change the world of work to be more flexible for men, women and children. Women in particular want career breaks while their children are small, and then school hours and term time contracts so they can be at home for their children while they're growing up and need guidance.
And Wendy Culpin of Halifax thought a whole army of women were completely ignored. She asks very reasonably,
what happened to the single parent? Unheard of during this series. Everybody interviewed or shown or tested for stress levels had a partner in employment. Everybody had lovely houses and drove cars. Nobody went by bus. Nobody lived in a council flat. Nobody was living on the poverty line. Nobody needed to work for the money.
In short, says Wendy,
the programme highlighted the needs of women, the needs for employers to provide creches, but didn't point out the need for some women to work to provide a half-decent standard of living for them and their children.
Anyway, here's a man trying to do women's work and being incredibly silly about it.
I'm just going to spoon mine in because I'm going to do the easy way. All you do...
Right.
So you fill them up like this. Fill it.
It's...
The whole end's come off me paper.
That's the best yet, I think.
Easily amused men. That was Philip Schofield ongoing live. And loads of complaints about the unsuitability of a couple of programmes. Jenny Cross of Bristol was
appalled when I sat down with my 2 children aged 9 and 11 to watch Survivors, Rue's Eye View. In the course of the half-hour programme, the word was used 3 times and twice by the Australian commentator.
This is not, says Jenny,
the sort of language one expects to hear before 9 o'clock.
Absolutely not, which of course makes it very tricky for us to fully explain on points of view. Similar complaints about young Sherlock Holmes, Kelvin Jones says.
Our 8-year-old daughter was frightened and upset by the opening scene of a dead bird coming to life on a man's plate.
On the other hand, you all love the live dog going potty swinging from a tree. That was a suitable clip to show before 9 o'clock as opposed to the opening of young Sherlock Holmes. But who should decide what is watched on television once children become teenagers? Family Matters asked whether teenagers still need a guiding hand or whether a wise parent is one who knows when to let go. Olive Bell writes.
I want to express my thanks to Family Matters for the courageous way in which the sociologist expressed the need for secure family discipline as the framework for adolescent development.
Christine Eager of Bedford wondered how the three families featured coped with the publicity.
I think we would have felt it very embarrassing to discuss our family problems on television.
And of the three families, she says,
The Liberal family actually exerted a strong influence on their daughter to go to university, whereas the Black family seemed to be exerting a very negative discipline. There was no talk of what they expected him to be, except a good boy.
But the parent Christine Eager says she felt most sympathy for
Was the white mother with 6 children. She was the only one who showed any humility. She really was up against it, and I'm sure many viewers would have found her pragmatic approach more understandable than the others.
Still on the subject of youngsters, Mr. Nash of Leigh-on-Sea would like to know.
Has the sun stopped shining in Florida?
Because, says Mr. Nash,
Paul from EastEnders has returned after 1 month in this glorious sunny American state with his face the colour of uncooked pastry.
that could be the subject of an entire series of Family Matters. On the other hand, ice skating never hurt nobody. I'll leave you with a little bit of the World Ice Dance Championships and the French-Canadian Duchesnays. He's obviously come straight from the office.